Hi everyone, welcome to Make Your Morning. Today is Tuesday the 13th of October and we're going to be speaking about the accountability ladder and also the circle of control today. And these are both related to your mindset. They're also related to what was talked about yesterday, which is resilience. So if you didn't get the chance to see yesterday's short episodes, then hop back to that clip as well after today's session. So I'm just going to wait a moment and see if anybody joins us live, and then we'll get started and fully launch into our topic. We're going to look at the accountability ladder first of all. So welcome to whoever is joining me live. Great to have you here. So starting with the accountability ladder today, and why I'm kind of sharing this is, as I mentioned, it's all about your mindset. It's all about really taking ownership of your actions and what you do, even in situations that you haven't created. And I think one of the big things for me when we look at the circle of control is sometimes accepting situations for what they are, and then thinking about what can you do to positively influence them. So if you look at the accountability ladder, if you Google it, you'll see so many different versions of it and people using it a lot of the time in personal development. So in the type of work that I do, it can be a really useful tool in coaching when somebody is feeling a bit stuck in what do I do, or what's my next step, or I'm a bit unsure of the circumstance that I'm in right now. It can be a really good way of us thinking about, okay, well, what can we do to move it forward? What can we do to take ownership and to respond to whatever situation you're in a positive way? So I'm just going to get my little notes up here in terms of the accountability ladder. But as I'm doing that, just you Google the accountability ladder so that you can have a copy of it in front of you. So in terms of that accountability ladder, it's split in half, the ladder. So the bottom half of the ladder, imagine it being kind of up against a wall. The bottom half of the ladder is what we call the victim behaviours. And that's when we can sometimes be lacking in kind of awareness for something. So the first step is like that awareness, okay? But sometimes we can be lacking awareness, not acknowledging the situation, pretending it's not happening. We can be blaming other people. So when we're not feeling like we're maybe taking full ownership of something or ready to move forward with it, I think it's really easy to blame other people's behaviours if we feel that people haven't acted in the right way, or it's their perception, or they're not getting it, they're not getting me, and blaming that other individual. Is that going to help you to move forward? Because often what we do is, if we're in that blame game mode, we get into a bit of a standoff with other person. Our energy feeds theirs. Sometimes they get defensive, sometimes we get defensive. We go into a really interesting book called Crucial Conversations, and it talks about us when we're in a situation where we're disagreeing on something, that we go into either silence or violence. Sometimes in that blame mode, we can either completely withdraw, or we can go into a place of attack as well. And it doesn't necessarily mean physical violence, and I certainly would hope it wouldn't, but that kind of sense of like attack, or getting more aggressive about a situation, or more frustrated about something as well. So moving up that ladder as well, we can be making excuses. So I didn't do this because I had so much on, or had other deadlines to achieve. You know, something happened in my personal life, and you know what? Sometimes things do come up, but I think when we are struggling to meet a deadline, actually to face it earlier and to speak to someone about it rather than getting to the deadline and then making the excuses can be really good. So that's a kind of third rung on the ladder, if you like. The fourth one there is hope. And sometimes when we're still in that, just teetering on the edge from becoming more accountable, we can be in that place of hope. So, oh, hopefully it'll be okay, or I'm sure it'll turn out fine, rather than taking an action that's going to help it to be resolved, or help the situation to turn out just as it should do as well. Sometimes we can be in that, kind of place of just blindly kind of hoping that everything's going to work out. But where you'll see, I guess, your real strength in decision making, and that's not only for yourself but for other people as well, and they will see you being really accountable, is when we step up the rungs of the ladder. So the first one is to, well, at the beginning it was like, oh, well, I'm not even acknowledging what's going on. This first step is about acknowledging reality. So if it's something that you've done that maybe wasn't the best move, actually acknowledging, well, maybe I shouldn't have done that. Maybe that wasn't the best approach. What could I do now to approach it slightly differently? So taking accountability for something, owning it. So I think whatever's happening in your life, I think it's important to own it, to acknowledge it, and to think about what you're going to do to kind of take care of that situation, what you're going to do to move forward on the situation, as well, as a really good way of looking at it in terms of that accountability ladder. So think about a situation that you've got right now in your life that you're not sure about where to go next with, or what to do, or you're kind of wrestling with it, you're getting really worried about it, or thinking about it a lot. How could you own it? What one step could you take to own it? Could you speak to somebody and get somebody else's perspective, somebody that's quite different to you as well? But you taking ownership and you deciding that you're going to take an action around it or take a next step makes such a difference, rather than us just avoiding it. And that's where things can build up. And I often talk about in coaching how a grain of sand, something that's really simple, maybe a bit annoying for you, can turn into a bag of sand if we don't deal with it, if we don't own the situation as well. So also that kind of relates to that next step bit, really kind of moves into the seventh bit of the ladder, which is about finding a solution. And this is where sometimes you have to look at things differently. So rather than just going down the path you would have usually always gone down, how can you find a solution that will work for you and also work for the other people that are involved as well? So think about that too, in terms of that accountability ladder, but just in your life in general. You often hear people saying, oh, come to me with a solution rather than a problem. And that's really in that accountable mindset, rather than going to your manager and saying, oh, this isn't working, this person's doing my head in. Actually think about, well, what would make it better? What would potentially solve it? What is the solution? And I think if you can take away one thing from this session today, thinking about solutions when things are challenging you, rather than always just focusing on the problems or the things that we can't control, is a huge and positive step. And the final bit is, it's all very well to say, okay, I'm owning it, I'm going to do something different. But what are we actually going to do to make it happen? So we need to take an action quickly to kind of build momentum on something. That doesn't mean rushing into something, but it means just taking the first step. And that might just be you reflecting and thinking about how I'm going to approach it, and writing down some thoughts, getting a little bit more information, whatever the situation may be, speaking to someone, reaching out to someone, putting a bit of time in the diary with them, setting it up in the right way, whatever that might be. Taking one next step is really important. So think about where you sit on that accountability ladder. Are you more in the kind of victim behaviours, the kind of first four? Or are you moving into the kind of steps 5 to 8? And I would always encourage you to, where possible, move through to stages 5 to 8 as quickly as possible. Sometimes we need a little bit of time in those victim behaviours to feel frustrated. But there's a book that I was reading, it's the Miracle Morning, and he talks about get frustrated about something for 5 minutes and then move on. You don't allow yourself in your day a lot longer than 5 minutes to do that, because then your energy is really conserved. And sometimes we go down this kind of spiral of negativity as well. So hopefully that's been useful around the accountability ladder. And just type in the chat box if you're there and let me know that you're here, and what you think of that accountability ladder. Have you heard about it before as well? So I'm always really interested to hear different people's perspectives. So while you do that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to move on to the circle of control. Now, there's various different versions of this. Now, sometimes you see the circle of control with 3 different rings. The inner ring is what we can control. So that's what we can directly do right now in the here and now to take action on. So in a situation, there's always elements, even if it's been thrown from left field, even if it's something really difficult or tragic, there's always some things that we can do that may help the situation, that may help to move it forwards, that we're going to have to do anyway, that actually if we move to that circle of control quicker, it can often help how we feel and help us to feel like we're doing something as well. There's then that second circle, which is called the circle of influence. And in the circle of influence, it's about maybe your more kind of short to medium term impact on this situation. So it's not necessarily the things that you need to go and take action on right now, but it's maybe the person that you need to think about. How do you get on board with an idea? It's maybe planning for the future and making sure all the right things are in place rather than the action that you're going to take right now. But you could say that planning as well is in action, but these two places in circle of control and also the areas that we can influence can be really powerful if we're always stepping into these areas. Again, it relates to that accountable behaviour on the accountability ladder. But the area to avoid is what is described often as the kind of area of concern, or the area where we cannot control things. And you can simply look at these circles as, what can I control? What can't I control? And things like, often in this country, people love moaning about the weather. Now, I live in Scotland, so to moan about the weather, I always think is funny, because we choose to live in Scotland. So we know that we're not living in a tropical climate. And when the weather changes, it's like every year, it's like, oh, it's getting so cold, it's getting so dark. And absolutely, some of these things at times can be a wee bit frustrating if they're putting barriers in place to what we do. But I always think there's a way around it. And it reminds me of the Billy Connolly sketch where he talks about, there's no such thing as bad weather, there's just bad clothes. So actually, how do you prepare? How do you get yourself? And actually, this time of year's amazing with the colours and, the freshness. You get cosy and get outside, and it's just an amazing thing to do. So that always makes me laugh. Obviously, at the moment, there's also, everything going on with COVID-19, and it's really, really challenging and tough for people because it's an unknown, and therefore, of course, it's going to be a topic of conversation. But I always think about, in our current circumstances, what can we do to control and influence? How can we, make sure that we're doing all the right things? In Scotland, it's about, they've got a little acronym about facts. So it's all about, keeping your 2 metre distance, making sure that you've got your face covering on, making sure that you're doing your hand washing, and all this sort of stuff, sticking to certain restrictions. So there's things that we can do to positively influence right now. And also, who can we help right now? Who do we know that's really struggling? Who can we reach out to? Family member, friend, acquaintance, that actually it would make a real difference to them at the moment, because maybe they're struggling a little bit. So in terms of that circle of control, draw a big circle, and same with the ladder, you can draw the ladder and where am I at on this ladder and where do I need to get further above it. But draw a circle, and right at the top, circle of control, and right in it all the different things that you can impact. And sessions like this around your mindset, around how you see things, around how you plan, around how you exercise, what fuel you put in your body, all of that you can control. And we see the output of that in our bodies, and how we interact with people, how we engage with people, how we treat people, all of that. We see that impact in what we are doing to control ourselves in certain situations. But with all of this, sometimes it's not good to feel like we're trying to control every second minute, and just to actually be in the present and see what unfolds is really, really good. But these two tools are so useful in helping you just to get back into a place where you feel like you've got some ownership of things. And I think that's really, really helpful for us all as people, to feel like we can influence the situation rather than feeling like we're in that kind of helpless mode, if you like. too. So Google those two tools. I'm going to put them up on my website, which is karenbonner.com as well. So you can hop over there in the next day or so and you'll be able to see them too. And yeah, I love that, James, that you hadn't heard of the accountability ladder. Really have a little look at that. Something that I discovered over the last few months, and it's been really, really useful to integrate into my coaching as well and into my life. I've always had the circle of control, but it's just a slightly different way of looking at it, and it breaks it down into different steps, which I think is often useful. So thank you for joining me, everyone. Thanks for joining me again, James. I know you've been at a few of the sessions live. And yeah, hope to see you back here tomorrow at 7 o'clock to start your day in the right way with Make Your Morning. KarenBonner.com. Lots of free resources. Feel free to subscribe to this channel as well, so you're getting notified of when we go live. I'm also running a meditation and mindfulness session this morning at 9 o'clock. If anybody wants to join, just get in touch. I'll send you the Zoom details, or we will stream it live on YouTube as well. Take care, everyone, and have a great day. Bye.